What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men Red number 3 by Al Ewing and Stefano Caselli. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down exactly why Cable, Thunderbird, and Manifold are going to be instrumental in taking down Abigail Brand. Not only that, we're also going to discuss how Abigail Brand is manipulating Vulcan back to his deadly Genesis power levels. We're also going to talk about how Iska the Unbeaten's powers can be manipulated and how one mutant has already discovered a way to make Iska beatable. Not only that, we're also going to answer the question, who is going to defeat Tarn the Uncaring in the Circle Perilous? Will it be Vulcan or Magneto or neither?
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
With this issue, man, one of the first things I want to get into, and I really like how fast Al Ewing is just getting straight to the meat of the matter. He has already given us a tease that Manifold is already aware that Abigail Brand is on that Fox News BS. He has also already put Manifold in a primary position to help take down Abigail, as we see that when Cable is resurrected after being vaporized by one of Orbis Stellaris' automatons, when he comes back, he actually had Hope Summers hook him up with some augmentations to his cybernetic arm, and this augmentation basically is a stealth kit that will block out anyone from being able to eavesdrop on them, whether it's by a technological means or even telepathic methods. And what makes this so awesome is because we discover in this issue that apparently the little instance between Cable and Thunderbird from the first issue apparently was fabricated. Now, granted, if you ask Thunderbird, they actually meant every single word that they said towards Cable, about Cable, as well as about Xavier and Cyclops. They weren't pulling any punches. This wasn't an act. To them, they believed every single word that they were saying. One of the things I thought was interesting in this is that Cable is already up to speed on Abigail Brand, because as one would imagine, he's from the future. He knows all the stuff that's going to be happening. He's up to speed on everything. So of course, he knows Abigail Brand can't be trusted, and he probably already knows that she's working with Orchis. He's already kind of had suspicions about her going back to Al Ewing's Sword series. Thunderbird, of course, already he has revealed, especially since the first issue of X-Men Red, as well as even going back to his reintroduction in New Mutants, he has already revealed that he knows something is not right about Krakoa and Arakko, and while he didn't necessarily know exactly where it all starts, he said that he knew everything rotted from the head down. That means he's probably also keen on the idea that Abigail Brand is up to something. And of course, Manifold, as we've already said in this video as well as in previous issues of X-Men Red, that yeah, he knows something is up. He doesn't trust her. They know that they're gonna have to take her down. And the reason why I think this group is gonna work so effectively together is because Manifold is already proven himself to be a very strong reconnaissance character. We saw how Abigail Brand was using him to sneak around and spy on other organizations, even how he infiltrated Orchis so easily and got information that no one else had, even though technically he did walk away before he learned the really important bits. But he's already proven he is a perfect guy to go in and get reconnaissance. Now, of course, Cable is going to be perfect for this operation because, as I said earlier, he already knows everything that's going to happen. He just has to wait for certain events to play out so he can make his moves. Thunderbird, on the other hand, he is kind of the unknown quantity in this. While yes, he does have a power set that would make him capable of being able to work as an infiltrator, no different or not even any less effective than Manifold, a lot of people are just going to assume, oh, he's just going to be the muscle of all this, but really even Cable could fill that role. No, Thunderbird is a guy who's going to call things the way he sees them. He is going to be objective. He is the most objective person in all of this, and this is why Cable thinks that it's going to work out between them, even though it will probably be a little tense at first. He knows that Thunderbird is going to call a spade a spade. He's not going to let personal differences or even personal connections make him see things any lesser than what they are. Getting back to the whole Abigail Brand part of it, the thing I love about this that, Abigail is doing is that she's not just sitting on her hands. Yeah, she has her, Iraqi X-Men group, even though none of them are of Arakko for the most part. Maybe with the exception of Cora the Burning Heart, who we do later learn is still working with Abigail Brand, but isn't necessarily married to the idea of it. But getting back to Abigail, what she's doing is she knows that Tarn the Uncaring, who has apparently since being defeated by Storm in the Circle Perilous back in Sword number 8, he's been fighting non-stop. When Storm defeated him, blood hit the water, and everyone who was gunning for Tarn has now come out of the woodwork to take him down, because now they see that he is in fact a beatable mutant. He's not some indestructible, invulnerable character who has no chance of losing. They see him now for what he is, but that means Tarn has had to change his game up. He's no longer gloating, he's no longer grandstanding, he's no longer waving around his superiority in everyone's faces. He's simply going in and killing people because he already made that mistake with Storm, something that's even readdressed in this issue by multiple characters, even Storm herself. The only reason that she defeated Tarn was because he underestimated her. He assumed that her powers were everything there was that was useful about her, and he didn't realize that she actually is a powerful and very skilled fighter even without them. He took all of that for granted, and he paid the price because he spent too much time talking that smack. And Storm, in turn, handed him a receipt. So now Tarn is taking every fight seriously, and Abigail knows no matter how powerful Vulcan is or used to be, there's no way he's gonna defeat him unless they unleash the beast within him, the very same one that we haven't seen since the War of Kings. Yeah, sure, Vulcan, he says he never died. He says that he's the most powerful mutant, that he's the emperor of the Shi'ar Empire, but does any of that really matter if the Shi'ar won't even recognize that he ever was their ruler? Does any of this matter if he doesn't command the same power that he once commanded way back? None of that matters anymore, and Abigail knows this. For all the confidence that Vulcan could possibly have, Abigail saw what happened and how easily Storm was able to defeat Vulcan, and if Storm can defeat Vulcan, and if she can defeat Tarn the Uncaring, then there's no way in hell that Vulcan is going to be able to defeat Tarn. Unless maybe they do a little manipulation. You see, she's had the character Mentallo working behind the scenes to try to uncover what's going on in Vulcan's brain. Now, Mentallo admits that he's not the most powerful psychic on Krakoa. As a matter of fact, he even personally admits that he is weaker than pretty much almost every other psychic on the island, but he, in his weakness, learned something that the others couldn't possibly have learned because, well, maybe it just wasn't their time to figure it out. Mentallo brings up that Vulcan, the one that we have seen since House of X, is nothing more than mere show, smoke and mirrors. That's not the real Vulcan, and we've said this on multiple occasions. The true Vulcan is being hidden away. He actually uses the analogy of, Looney Tunes, how Wile E. Coyote would paint a tunnel against a solid mountainside wall so that the Roadrunner would run into it and knock himself unconscious, but as one would imagine, it being Looney Tunes, Roadrunner would simply run right through it, even though it wasn't even a real tunnel. That's what he's comparing the Vulcan that we see to, that this guy is just an illusion. Yeah, sure, you can walk through him, you can walk through the tunnel that is Vulcan, yeah, sure, and it works, it's fine, it's perfectly normal. However, that's not the real Vulcan, and if one were to look deeper, you would probably see the true Vulcan underneath that's been hidden away by those mysterious aliens who found him within the vault. Mentallo reveals that Vulcan's true nature is definitely there, and if Mentallo, who is one of the weaker psychics on the island, was able to figure this out, that doesn't necessarily mean that Xavier, Jean, Psylocke, Emma, so on and so on and so forth, it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't good enough to find it. What Mentallo finds scary about this is that if he was able to find it when they couldn't, that must mean that the wall, the veneer that has been hiding the true Vulcan, is likely finally starting to crack. And that's exactly what Abigail Brand is hoping for. She wants him to go back to his old War of Kings ways, but also she wants him to tap into an ability that he hasn't used since X-Men Deadly Genesis number 3. For those that don't remember, in Deadly Genesis, Vulcan was able to siphon off the power of other mutants and even in some cases use them for his own ends. Mentallo and Abigail have been able to teach Vulcan how to access that ability, and he's going to use it against Tarn the Uncaring. This is something that's going to turn their match into a bit more of a one-sided ass-kicking, because Tarn also has the same ability, but as Tarn is trying to shut off Vulcan's powers, Vulcan is going to use this moment to shut down Tarn's instead. But Vulcan is going to make a critical mistake, a mistake that Tarn made when he faced off with Storm. Vulcan starts grandstanding. he puts Tarn in the exact same position that Storm was in when Storm faced off with Tarn, and Tarn is going to take advantage of it. Because as Tarn points out, non-mutant weapons are allowed within the Circle Perilous, which by that saying means that any weapon he has on his person can be used against Vulcan. And he's going to do exactly that, not only using his wit and his sheer force of will, but also displaying that he is in fact a very well-rounded hand-to-hand fighter, breaking Vulcan's arm and smashing his skull into the pavement, killing him, making Tarn the absolute winner in his fight against another Omega level mutant. Now, Vulcan is not the only Omega level mutant who Tarn has to face off with. Magneto has also thrown his hat, or rather his helmet, into the arena, both figuratively and literally. Magneto didn't originally want to do this though. Magneto was against the idea of fighting against Tarn because, as for one, he knows that if he defeats Tarn, then he would ultimately take Tarn's place at the Seat of Loss in Arakko's Great Ring. And Magneto is against this, not because he doesn't want the power, not because he's afraid he's going to make the same mistakes as he did before, but because taking the Seat of Loss on the Great Ring of Arakko would mean that they are doing the exact opposite of what Magneto and Storm wanted this brotherhood to be about. They wanted it to be about the mutants for the mutants and to find a way to uplift the Iraqi mutants and get them on board. But if yet another Krakoan sits on the Great Ring, if yet another Krakoan is opening their mouth and trying to tell the Iraqi how to live, he feels that that defeats the purpose, and he's not wrong. Even though the Fisher King, Storm, Sunspot, all of them are trying to tell him different, that maybe this is the only way. And this is probably one of the best conversations you're gonna get in an X-Men book, really, or maybe even any other comic for that matter this week, because I love the back and forth between Magneto and Storm, two characters who have a long history together, but also have a great deal of respect for one another, know each other probably better than any other characters in this book could possibly know one another. And I love the fact that there's a point where Magneto tells Storm that you remind me so much of Charles Xavier. This could be taken as an insult, it could also be taken as a compliment, because as we know, Charles and Magneto have a very storied history together, but what he's talking about is, he's talking about the fact that Charles Xavier always tries to see the best outcome in every situation, even in situations where there really is no good outcome. I also appreciate that Magneto even brings up his daughter Anya, who doesn't really come up very often, but for those who don't remember, Anya was a character who was first introduced to us in classic X-Men number 12 back in 1987. It was also when we were introduced to how she was killed. She died in a fire, and Magneto was unable to save her because there was a mob who basically stood between him and his only child at the time. She is such a painful memory for Magneto because it is technically considered by him to be one of his greatest failures, and even more so now that the mutants have the waiting room, a place that allows every mutant ever born, even if they died before their X gene was activated or developed, they can be brought back to life. But Anya is no such character. She was 100% human from the get-go. And this has brought great pain to Magneto because he knows he's never going to get that back. But just the same, it also helps him realize he has nothing to lose, and he is going to try to defeat Tarn the Uncaring. Now, this is also a situation where, on paper, Tarn, who now has his powers back, should be able to defeat Magneto. He has powers beyond anything that Magneto has at his disposal. Yes, Magneto is the master of magnetism. He's an Omega level mutant when it comes to manipulating the electromagnetic spectrum. He has proven it time and time again that he is capable of accomplishing great and incredible feats. But Tarn can also manipulate another person's genetic code. He can also manipulate another mutant's powers. Just as Vulcan turned Tarn's powers off, Tarn could just as easily turn Magneto's powers off. He could even turn Magneto into a creature not that different than what he did to Storm when he faced off against her. But before the fight can occur, something incredible happens, and it has to do with the character Iska the Unbeaten, who, as we know, her mutant power is she doesn't lose. There's no way for Iska to lose. All she does is win, even in situations where she normally would lose. It's one of those things, she can't control it. There's no real actual way for her to control this power. It's kind of like Domino's probability manipulating powers. How Domino can't control how luck plays out for her. All she can do is put herself in a situation and just see what happens. There's no real way to tell how luck is going to favor her in such a way to put her in a better position to keep her from dying. We saw this in a recent annual of X-Force, where she was put in a situation where she was dropped down a hole that could lead her to one of 4 tubes. Each of those tubes led to certain death. Her powers made it, though, that she fell to the tube that was the least dangerous of the 4. But either way, she was still gonna die if things didn't play out a certain way. And that's how Iska's powers work. They could be manipulated by an outside source, and this time, this outside source is the character Sunspot. Sunspot decides that if Iska seems to be of the belief that Magneto doesn't stand a chance, and even Sunspot himself knows Magneto doesn't stand a chance, Sunspot makes a wager with her. He says, "I bet that Tarn the Uncaring wins." This is a challenge to Iska that, in a roundabout way, she kind of has to answer. Because if he bets against her that Tarn the Uncaring will win, that means she has to bet that Magneto wins instead. And if she bets that, that means Magneto wins, full stop. In order to combat this, she kills Sunspot. She snaps his neck and tries to accuse him of a high crime in Arakko. But all of it is ignored for the most part. The truth of the matter is the damage has already been done. When Magneto steps into the arena, for better or worse, whether it has anything to do with Iska or not, Magneto comes in and proves yet again, for probably the umpteenth millionth time in his history, that he is, regardless of the limitations of his power, he is always ready and thinking 20 million chess moves ahead of his enemy. He steps into the arena, and as I said earlier, he brought his helmet with him. Now, why is he not wearing this helmet? Should he have it on to block any kind of potential mental or psionic attack from Tarn the Uncaring? No. Because his helmet works both ways. His helmet is made of metal, and in such a way that it makes even him immune to psionic attacks. But it also means anyone else wearing his helmet could not use any kind of telepathic or psionic attacks against him, or anyone else for that matter. And he places the helmet upon Tarn the Uncaring's head, blocking his ability to turn off Magneto's X-Gene. This is exactly the edge that Magneto needed. And with Tarn the Uncaring unable to use his psionic abilities to manipulate Magneto's X-Gene, Magneto uses his ability to manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum to constrict the metal helmet around Tarn the Uncaring's head, crushing his skull, killing him. Magneto didn't want to do this. He even says earlier, and even Storm admits as well, that killing Tarn the Uncaring would stain him. It would taint his soul in ways that he'll never be able to recover from. Something that even Storm said herself, that she didn't do it because she knew it would taint her. That's why she allowed him to yield. But Magneto gave him no such opportunity because they do need him off of the Great Ring of Arakko. Vulcan in no way, shape, form, or fashion could have been allowed to sit on the Great Ring, because if he did, even though that is one of the weaker seats on the Great Ring, it would have given Abigail a leg up over Storm. It would have given her a way to challenge Storm in some way on the Great Ring and ensure that Arakko goes the way that she wants it to. Well, now they blocked her. But at what cost? At what cost is this going to be to Magneto's mental health, which has already kind of been cracking as of late? Not only that, I feel like Abigail manipulated Storm in such a way to get her to push things in this direction, because as I've always said, Abigail is always thinking ahead as well. She wouldn't have just sent Vulcan out there to simply lose. Even if she knew there wasn't even so much as a chance of him winning, even if there was only a 5% chance of him winning, she wouldn't have sent him out there because she would have felt that he's useful elsewhere. But something tells me, especially with some of the things that Abigail has said to Storm in this issue, I can't help but wonder if Abigail set this up, that she wanted it to go this way. Because if 2 Krakoans sit on the Great Ring, then it would do exactly what Magneto feared in the first place. It would diminish everything they're trying to do. It's a catch-22. It's a lose-lose situation. Vulcan defeats Tarn, and he sits the Great Ring. It's a lose situation for the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood steps in and defeats Tarn. When Vulcan cannot, one of them sits the Great Ring, and then it's two Krakoans on the throne, and kind of already starts to erode the goodwill they've already built. It's a lose-lose scenario, and I really like how Al Ewing wrote this up. But anyways, I do really like what's going on here, and I do hope that maybe at some point, maybe Storm will actually get Cora of the Burning Heart on the team. I think that Al Ewing set her up in Sword in the first place just for this moment, because Al Ewing's always playing the long game. Of course, he's bringing her into this. I'm really waiting for that moment when we finally see the Brotherhood become exactly what they want to become. We've already got Sunspot, Storm, Magneto, the Fisher King, and I'm pretty sure eventually Cora of the Burning Heart will be there. I can't wait to see Cable, Thunderbird, and Manifold come into it, and just, man, it's gonna be great. And I hope they add in some more characters, but I really feel like right now Al Ewing is putting all the chess pieces in just the right places to set up a master move that Abigail Brand she may see coming, but I don't think she's going to be able to do anything about it. But anyways, that's everything I wanted to talk about with X-Men Red number 3. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week breaking down comics and comic book characters, so make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss anything. And if you want to see my video breaking down how Storm defeated Tarn the Uncaring, make sure you check out this video right here to learn all about it. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about X-Men Red number 3. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.